Welcome to the Anti-Noise Experience podcast, Endurance Noise, Random Musings, Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. About 7:30 here at night in Bakersfield. Actually having a pleasant evening. Only 90s and the air is kind of clean without so much smoke. Just got back from Bakersfield Distance Project Run Camp. Highly recommend finding a group to train with. It's a great way to do things. It's interesting looking here on Twitter, kind of doing an endurance news daily. And trending, Los Angeles Times, 4 hours ago, Cantrell opens up about her Sex and the City role. Wow. Hello, 1995 or something? That's so old. Very odd. Anyways, I'm going on to some more endurance news instead. Parsoni on Twitter says, still can't get over the fact that the Le Tour pulled off 3 weeks of cycling competition across countries with fans screaming right next to them safely, yet USATF can't muster up planning necessary to send a few athletes to the World Half Marathon Championships. Yeah, USATF pretty much never gets anything right. It was pretty amazing to watch the Tour de France. They had a bubble of over 700 people, riders, and all the people who support them going around France. Every Monday they usually have a day off, and on the first Monday they tested. They had 4 people test positive. One was the race director, and then he took a week off, which was kind of odd. I thought you had to have 2 weeks. But then when they did the second testing in the second week, 0 people tested. And so kind of goes to show you healthy young people in outdoors aren't getting it, and then they were doing safety precautions. And so it would be nice to start getting things back to normal here in the States. But, leadership is a big issue, of course. As myself, I'm lucky my kids are all in their late 20s, but I feel really sorry for some of the people I coach and train with who have young kids who are at home trying to be homeschooled online. It's very difficult. So, yeah, Dumb Flow Track says, expected to see huge bump in ratings for cross-country meets now that they no longer have to go head-to-head with the NFL. Yeah, because the season's been changed now. I think now they're going to do it. They just announced January to March. And actually, it's interesting, the World Championships are always in March, so it's kind of more in line to how the Worlds are. But they're going to have, the championships are going to be on the same day as the indoor championships. Now, to have an indoor track meet, we can't even have an outdoor track meet. So I can't imagine doing indoor, because if you've ever been to an indoor track meet, it's a 3-ring circus, pretty crowded. I was lucky enough to go up to Fresno a few times with Prep Cal Track and see the so-called state indoor high school meet, and it was on a 160-meter track, 10 laps to the mile. Pretty wild, pretty circus-like atmosphere, but definitely difficult to do some social distancing, that's for sure. So, yeah, the season cross-country is going to start on January 23rd. The championships on March 15th. And so that was kind of interesting seeing that. And then go further on here. I'm going to get back to that in a second. There's a tweet here, dissecting Outside Magazine smear of Lazarus Lake. That'll become something I'll be doing a little bit in depth towards the end of this podcast. Matthew Park says, Baker says, Coach sits you down after your 5K, 3K mile triple and gives you a choice. Come back for the 4x4 or the 10K cross. What are you choosing? Kind of a reaction to the NCAA putting the national championships on the same day as the indoor championships. Hal Hidgen, great coach from long time ago, 80s, he's still going strong. He says, Wayne Gretzky's father once told him, skate where the puck is going, not where it has been. Where will you be as a runner next year when we have a vaccine and a pandemic is only a bad memory? Let's all hope that. But yeah, you should be training now with that in mind, so that'd be definitely a thing. So speaking of this person here, Kevin Beck, I think he has written, from what I can tell from his blog, he was kind of a freelance writer and has written for Runner's World, Sports Illustrated, Outside Magazine. In fact, he talks about how Outside Magazine's kind of their whole business model kind of gets these articles because they're constantly trying to hire freelancers, not paying them very much, putting a lot of pressure on them to come up with stories. And so he has an article here called Dissecting Outside Smear of Lazarus Lake. When your villain's not as racist or as dumb as you hope, promote that idea anyways. And I kind of just went through here, kind of quickly reading it. And it says basically, on September 11th, Outside ran a hit piece under the guise of asking its objective someone, that article called the noted race director of virtual half ultramarathon, why he had banned entrants from using the term Black Lives Matter as a team name in the event, and an act that inspired swift social media reprisals against RD Gary Cantrell, whose nom de plume is Lazarus Lake. Now, interesting though, actually, they get it completely confused. The Great Race Across Tennessee was an individual event, which I did. I did the Race Across Tennessee and then back across Tennessee. There were no teams in that. What the team was now in his new race, circumpolar race around the world, the craw, there are teams and up to 10 people, and you can have a multi-sport team or a running team. What happened was, and it kind of talks about it here later, is that an individual, Chan, when he finished, he posted that, yay, I finished the rat. And a lot of people did that on Facebook. And if you were on that Facebook page, there was over 10,000 people. And Laz and his other people, I'm sure, administrators, were really vigilant about deleting any posts that were political, controversial, about other races, about just any kind of, it was basically, this page is about the great race across Tennessee, nothing else. You can post pictures of your workouts and your runs and all this stuff, but let's keep everything out. And so it basically, Chan at the end of his thing was excited about finishing, and he posted his stuff. And then, so the Black Lives Matter thing was really, the team name was for the next event, but it was also more that Chan, when he finished, kind of promoted Black Lives Matter, and it wasn't the post that caused the issues with Lazarus or anybody, it was all the comments, as you well know. One of the reasons I hardly ever comment much on Facebook, and if I do, I make a comment and then I don't follow. I put don't follow the comments. And one of the reasons I kind of like doing a podcast, because I can kind of say my bit. And so, the headlines of this article written by Martin Huber carries the headline, "Why did a virtual ultra ban Black Lives Matter?" Is a fair question, although why did a virtual ban political messages seems more accurate. But the subtitle, "The infamous race director Lazarus Lake and runner Ben Chan disagree on whether the running community is a place for serious debate, requires some radical leaps that the content fails to support." And basically he's saying that, they just did it as clickbait, that the person who's in charge of Outside Magazine's always trying to get things riled up. And I know, like, when they did the thing on trail runners being parasites, there was a kernel of truth in there, but it also caused quite a firestorm. But it gets you more hits, gets you more, eyeballs, and that's what it's all about. And so, it says here, "I can certainly understand Chan's eagerness to post his result along with the accompanying picture and commentary, but when Lake told Chan, 'I'm 1,000% in agreement, but this is not a political site,' that should have been the end. But Chan took to Instagram, declaring the issue to be rooted in white privilege. In his defense, some Black Lives Matter pictures had evidently survived the deletion. Blue Lives Matter had survived the deletion, despite Lake's ever-vigilant trigger figure. So Chan was employing the same tactics, summoning the mob to pile on someone for refusing to actively be on the train, in this case after the RD had gone to lengths to establish that he had no specific animus against BLM. So basically it says, even apart from whatever a given RD wants to play host to a volatility that arises when permitting any kind of political talk, it seems more sensible to ask someone like Lake what his organic position on human rights are, rather than asking him what he thinks of the slogan. And of course, are we going to interview and talk to every single race director? I don't think so, because I know a lot of race directors, and you get a lot of answers. It would be interesting. And it says, in fact, they say here, why not quiz every race director on this? Not just the ones from Appalachia with big ass beards who might have, funny ideas about BLM. This is pretty obvious, but Lake is not only an event organizer who prefers to avoid overt political actions. 9/11 Heroes Run was one of them. One can argue with the decision of RD to operate this way without assuming he's unsympathetic, especially when he says he's 100% in agreement with you in principle. And so Huber goes on, "I pressed Cantrell about a specific version of Black Lives Matter. What? To this point, Huber had gone to some pains to establish the exact opposite. Cantrell's version of potentially provably inflammatory message was as apolitical as possible, with a ban hammer dropping on everything MAGA to BLM." And yeah, it's just kind of an admin thing. It says, later in the article, after they pretty much bash Laz throughout most of it, it points out that Chan is adamant that he doesn't think that Cantrell is a racist person. But kind of like no one gets to that far. So the real firestorm came on where the editor, this Molly Sharon, I guess, when she tweeted, she put on, says, on a dispute between a runner and a race director over a team named Black Lives Matter and what it means when white runners insist that the running community should be the refuge from difficult conversations. And that's just not really the case. It's not a minor point that Mercer Ham decided not to only make this specifically about the race, but also suggest that Lake didn't think the running community as a whole should host such conversations. This is two unsupported charges in one. And this author kind of goes to the flip side. What if it was a person of color, putting on the race and not allowing, the MAGA and Trump Pence and all these other things? When black female directors think the running community is of no place for difficult issues, would that be the title of the article? So it's an ongoing controversy. I'm sure Laz will survive it. I'm just seeing some people. I think your time could be spent on more pressing issues. But that's just how I sort of feel, and I'm sure I'm not allowed to have any feelings on such matters for the most part, anyways. But yeah, all I know is, if, like I said on the podcast before, if I was a race director and I had teams, which I don't like teams anyways, if I had teams, they would be only numbers. And I'm sure somehow some numbers would cause great offense. But, even though you just give them like, okay, you sign up, first team's number 1, second team's number 2, but I'm sure there'd be some numbers that people would not take kindly to, like 13 or 666 or who knows what. So, as always, stay healthy. Be boring, not epic.